In this video, we're going to look at the 8th grade packet, day 4 page. And on the day 4 page, we see we have a lot of equations that have a ton of steps for us to solve. So we're going to walk through actually 2 of these together. We're going to review the steps of this problem that's already worked out, problem number 1, and then we're going to go over problem number 5 together. So in problem number 1, the very first thing that I notice that has been done is there's multiplication by 5 on both sides of the equation. This multiplication by 5 is in order to get rid of dividing by 5. In the original problem, the entire left-hand side is being divided by 5. So we are going to multiply by 5 so that we can undo that dividing by 5. So on the left-hand side of the equation, now all that we have left is 4 parentheses x minus 8. But since we multiplied by 5 on the left side of the equation, we also had to multiply by 5 on the right side to keep the balance, or to keep this equation equal on both sides. 5 times 16 gave us 80. Now our equation is looking a lot more simple. If we had started with this equation, it would have been a lot more simple. The next step was to get rid of the parentheses that are over here on the left side. There's a lot of work to be done to get that left side even simpler. I'm going to distribute the 4 to everything that's in those parentheses. Because the 4 is sitting next to the parentheses, it means it's being multiplied. So I'm going to multiply the 4 by everything in the parentheses. 4 times x is 4x, and 4 times negative 8 is negative 32. We didn't do any distributive property on the right-hand side of the equation, so it didn't change. Now we're going to use inverse operations. The way the work is shown with inverse operations here might be a little bit different than what we're used to. We might be used to writing the plus 32 to undo the minus 32 underneath of our equation. On our paper, we can see that that has been written next to the equation instead of underneath of the equation. Either way we write it, minus 32 and plus 32, minus 32 and plus 32, cancel out, and we just have 4x on the left side. And on the right side, 80 plus 32, whichever way we write it, is going to equal 112. Our very last step to isolate the variable will be to divide by 4 on both sides, because 4 is being multiplied by x. So we cancel out the 4's on the left, and we do the math on the right to see our solution of 28. Over here, we check our work by putting the 28 into the original equation where the x was, and simplifying and making sure we get a true statement. But let's do number 5, and we're going to do this work together. One thing that I notice is there are a lot of fractions in this problem. So we're going to start by using a little trick that helps us get rid of those fractions. I notice that all of the fractions have a denominator of 3. Remember, a denominator of 3 is kind of like being divided by 3. And if I want to get rid of or undo divided by 3, I can use multiplying by 3. So I'm going to put brackets around the whole equation. And I want to multiply the entire equation by 3. I've now made a giant distributive property problem. So I have to distribute that 3 to every term in this equation. Every term or every chunk. What this is going to do is it's going to undo divided by 3 wherever I have divided by 3. However, I might notice in this term here, the 5 times parentheses x minus 12, there's no divided by 3 to undo. So I have to actually multiply 3 times this 5. So let's see what this problem is going to look like now. 2 times x plus 3 plus 7. Remember, we had to do 3 times this 5, which is 15. And then minus 2. Now we've gotten rid of all of the fractions and we can work with just integers. Our next step is to look at each side of this equation one at a time. Let's start with just the left side and do some simplifying. I notice that I have distributive property in order to get rid of these parentheses. So I'm going to go ahead and distribute this to x. I distributed the 2 to the x and the 3 and got 2x plus 6. I didn't have to distribute anything to this plus 7, so I'm just going to bring it down. I'm stopping when I get to that equal sign because all I'm worried about right now is simplifying what's on the left-hand side. The next thing I notice I can do to simplify is that I have two like terms. 6 and 7 are both constants, so they're like terms and I can combine them. I'm going to bring down the 2x, and 6 plus 7 is 13. On this left-hand side of the equation, I've now gotten this in the absolute simplest form. On the right-hand side, I'm going to follow the same steps. I notice, again, I have a distributive property step. I'm going to multiply 15 to both of those terms. You might be thinking 15 times 12, I can't do that with mental math. And that's okay. You can use a calculator to help you out there. The minus 2 comes down because it was not involved in the distributive property step. Again, I notice I have some like terms. Negative 180 and negative 2 are both constants. They don't have a variable attached to them, so I can combine those like terms. Now I have the right side in the absolute simplest form. Now that we have everything simplified, we can begin our steps to solve. To solve this equation, we need to get the variable terms on the same side of the equation and the constant terms on the other side of the equation. It doesn't matter which ones go to which sides, we can make that choice ourselves, but I like to make the choice when I start so that I know where I want everything to go. So I'm going to choose that I want to get my variables over here on the left side and my constants over here on the right side. So when I look at what I've got, 2x is a variable term. It's already on the proper side, so I'm going to leave it alone. Plus 13 is a constant term. It's not on the correct side, so I want to move it over here. To move it over here, I've got to undo on the left side. Whatever I do to one side, I have to do the exact same thing to the other side to keep the balance. So on the left-hand side, all I've got is 2x. And on the right-hand side, I'm going to go ahead and do that math. Again, you can use a calculator to help you out if you need to. Now, all that I have on the left side, I have a variable term. On the right side, I have a variable term and a constant term. This constant term's in the right place, but the variable term needs to move. So we're going to use subtraction. Two minus 15 is going to give me a negative number over here. And because this is subtraction or negative, I need to make sure I bring that negative sign down. Our very last step is to get this variable all by itself. The variable is being multiplied by negative 13. So I'm going to undo multiplying by negative 13 with dividing by negative 13. This way, we have x isolated on the left side of the equation, and I can do this math. I know a negative divided by a negative is a positive, and it's okay for me to use a calculator to help me know that 195 divided by 13 is 15. So we have solved this equation, x equals 15.